found out that we were pregnant, and then we were so excited, and we found out at 18 weeks that we were gonna have one baby that would have a birth defect and another baby that was completely healthy. The doctors gave us the option to have only one baby, the healthy baby, because they called him ONEB, or one baby boy, having him would increase the chances of losing both of them. We immediately decided that we were gonna have two baby boys and we were gonna bring home two baby boys. And the pregnancy was difficult, and we followed up with Vanderbilt and all kinds of neonatologists and specialists, and we knew that we were given a gift in Joseph and one baby boy, and we were thankful for him, and we just trusted the Lord that we were going to bring two baby boys home.
When Elizabeth went into labor, her water broke at 8 weeks before their due date. We immediately got transferred over to Vanderbilt, and that's where Elizabeth stayed the entire time until both of them came home. I traveled back and forth between Crossville and Vanderbilt most of the time daily to be able to see the boys and Elizabeth, and then also had to work. Joseph had challenges all through. Jonathan came home after 2 weeks and did very well and continued to grow. Joseph struggled through the NICU experience without the ability to swallow. His secretions came up and choked him quite a bit. The day they decided to go to surgery, they went in knowing that surgery was going to happen, but not knowing that God gave him the esophagus that was long enough to be put back together. Early that morning, I left to head back to work. Elizabeth called me a couple hours later, rejoicing that his esophagus was long enough, and that surgery ended up being very successful with putting his esophagus back together, and he was able to swallow for the first time.
And that is a huge day in our family. We praise God. That day, they were born on May 29th, and Joseph got his esophagus and had his healing on June 25th. It's a day we celebrate. Joseph, we call it Joseph's Day. We'll always celebrate June 25th because the Lord answered our prayers and returned to us two baby boys that had the ability to swallow and eat and breathe on their own. It was exciting times. Joseph was progressing. He still had the feeding tube in his abdomen because of his esophagus repair, so we brought him home with a feeding tube in his stomach. We never used it. They were discharged from the hospital. Actually, Jonathan was already home with us, and Joseph was discharged, and he was home before his due date. The doctors said that's medically unexplainable, that with all the surgeries he had, that he would come home before his due date. We just rejoiced about it. Crossville welcomed us. There were signs in our yard, welcome home. And if that wasn't a blessing enough to have the boys home together before the due date, that was in 2007. In 2008, we added Jane Elizabeth. We had a normal pregnancy and delivered a healthy baby girl. So within 2 years, God gave us Jonathan, Joseph, and Jane Elizabeth.
When he was born, God gave him a spirit of willingness and purpose. God created him to have courage, strength, and a willpower to survive and to love other people. He spread his love even in the NICU. He would smile at you when you came to care for him because he knew he was having contact with someone, and he loved having someone talk to him and let his head. And we would spend many hours in the rocking chair, just rocking back and forth, talking, and he was always exploring, even from a baby. He would look around. He didn't know he had any problems. However, he did have trouble breathing because that little pouch that didn't connect down to his stomach would fill with a lot of secretions, and he would bubble up. He would be bubbles, we hold bubbles sometimes. And we would have to suction his throat out often. Dr. Yang was his surgeon, and Dr. Yang said, I want to wait till he's 5 pounds. Well, one day he had a really rough weekend because it was he had been here a couple of weeks. And so that distal and the proximal end of his esophagus had kind of grown closer together. Dr. Yang had no hopes that it would get together on its own or close to each other to repair it easily. However, after his rough weekend of just trying to breathe and clear his secretions, and Anthony even learned how to suction him because, he had to have it every 15, 20 minutes. We swallow, and he couldn't even swallow to get rid of it. So Anthony learned to suction, and Dr. Yang came in and said, we're not going to wait till he gets to 5 pounds. We're going to do it today. So we all got prepared. He was ready to go, and it was an easy procedure.
The first several years at our house was loud and lots of action with 3 little ones. And as Joseph grew into a toddler, he just had this unique smile. He was so happy. He had difficulties resulting in his NICU stay with sensory processing and stimulus, but he literally had a smile, and we saw his personality develop. We saw his love of others. He was happy as a toddler. He was so giving. When Jane Elizabeth was a tiny infant baby, Joseph would walk over and Jonathan would give her toys in the bouncing seat. They just had hearts to give, and we saw that personality in Joseph from toddler on up.
As the boys got bigger, at age 5, we introduced them to sports. Soccer was their first team sport. Getting them out with the exercise, we started to see their competitive nature, not only between each other, but on the soccer field. Over the next couple years, we added in basketball and t-ball and shooting when they hit 8. For the years that went by, the desire to improve and be better continued to push them to constantly practice. The thankful is for Jonathan and Joseph, they had each other to practice against, and it was all boys all the time with it.
I don't think we really knew what an impact he was going to have on all of us until after he died. And since then, it's really been, just inspiring to see and hear all of the testimonies of all the people Joseph meant so much to, and they were, they were motivated and inspired by his passion. He lived all in everything that he did. And that team of boys that he plays with, the 07, All In 07 boys, they're like brothers, and they love each other. And so we really suffered a great loss when we lost Joseph. I think heaven is probably better off with Joseph, and we know he's looking down on us and motivates us to continue to push forward in what we're doing because he believed in it wholeheartedly. So one story that I remember about Joseph was this last winter in December, we were playing futsal, indoor soccer, in Hendersonville. And this team, we'd been watching them play. They were a year older than us. They were from a good soccer club, and they were a really good team. And they had beaten everyone badly, they had played all day, and we knew it was going to come down to us and them. Joseph played goalkeeper in futsal. He was a phenomenal goalkeeper. We actually scored first and went up 1-0, and that was a big surprise. And then we played the game. It was an 18-minute game, just battling back and forth, and they scored 2 goals on us. And so they were up 2-1 with about a minute left. One of the most memorable moments in my 17-year coaching career happened. Joseph dropped the ball, and it was this you would see in a movie where it goes to slow motion and someone says, "No." Joseph dropped the ball, and he shot the ball from full court and scored as a goalkeeper. And it was insane. I was in the middle of probably yelling for him to stop, and he just scored and tied the game 2-2. And we tied. We didn't win, we tied, but it was a very memorable moment, something that I'll never forget. And, Joseph was a kid who absolutely believed that he could score that goal when he's defied the odds his entire life, from his birth through surgeries, you know, through the early years into athletics. You know, everything he did, he was passionate about, but he believed in himself wholeheartedly, and everybody believed in Joseph. And so that moment will always stand out to me, just watching that take place. And it was really great just to be there in the gym that day.
We came to Crossville about 11 years ago, my family. We moved there from Illinois. And when we first moved, we signed the kids up for soccer. And, you know, in that process, we played a couple years before we got to meet the Warlicks. You know, we never really played with the Warlicks at the beginning. That was, we kind of formed a rivalry with them, in fact. And it was great, you know, it was great competitive games. All about what rec soccer, you know, should be, you know, just fun, just pure fun. And as we went along, you know, they were a huge part of that, and able to get that started. And his team, you know, that was a huge part of the team that they had built around. And I think you know, Joseph, Jonathan, and his parents really did a great job. In bringing that together and giving our kids here in Crossville and Avenue that we could perform at that level.
Hi, my name is Isaiah Richard. I knew Joseph Warlick from, I played soccer with him for All In FC, and I went to church with him at Central Baptist. Joseph was an awesome guy. He just, awesome teammate, felt like a brother. He was always encouraging you to go bigger and out of your comfort zone, but he did it in a loving way. He didn't do it like in a mad tone or anything. He would critique you, but it helped me grow and everybody else grows. So
Joseph was like a brother to me. We played soccer since we were 5. I played basketball with him and baseball, and growing up he would always come to my house and we'd always play sports, and he was just such a close friend to me, and I could just trust him with anything I needed to. We're all in forever, number 11.
I really miss Joseph. Joseph was the best teammate I could ever have. He was a true friend, and I could never find those. He's a loyal teammate, and he will always be a loyal friend. I know he's up there watching us, supporting us in heaven, and cheering us on. This season is all about Joseph. Joseph was always a great person. Even though we were yelling at each other on the field, we would always help each other get through games and get through anything else.
From the beginning at T-ball, we were always on the same team. We were always the athletics, and we were always green and yellow, and we were always sponsored by one of our dads and coached by the exact same people every time. And so that was really where it started. And then we went all the way from as long as I can remember. That was some great times with him. What I'll miss most about Joseph is that I won't have that teammate that I can rely on. That's something I'll miss a lot. I'd tell him that I wish he would still be on my team, that he was a great friend, great teammate, someone I could rely on, someone I could talk with whatever I wanted to, whether it was sports or about him or about me or whatever I wanted, I could speak my mind to him. Joseph cared about others more than himself. He wanted his team to do well, not just himself.
The Warlick twins are the reason that I started coaching. They started shooting while I was probably a junior or senior in high school, and I would kind of help them along the way. And then when I graduated, I signed up for coaching to work with those boys. They're always together. He was down the dumps pretty bad at a Sporting Clay tournament. It's a state tournament in Nashville. I told that Sporting Clays, you shoot 6, 8, 10 targets at a stand, then you walk to the next one. And I told him that if he cleared the station, I wanted him to turn around, growl, flex, growl at me. And that made his day. He shot several stations clean. He'd turn around, growl, grinning from ear to ear. We got most of his squad to do that too. That really turned his day around, and it It didn't bother him that he missed a target, it bothered him that he didn't get to growl at me. That was something nice from him. Joseph was definitely all in everything he done. He didn't halfway do anything. Whichever way his nose was pointed, he went wide open. Yeah, that's something I'd like to do in my everyday life. I miss you. Miss you, buddy.
Joseph also loved the outdoors. The farm was someplace he absolutely wanted to be. Hunting, Uncle Clay and Papa started them off hunting in the deer stand to start with before they could even shoot a gun. Bird hunting, the dove hunt on the farm every year. We started going the last couple of years to shoot pheasant out at a friend of Taylor's. And you could see them as they were out there. It was Jonathan, Joseph, everywhere they went. And remarkable shot, but they loved it, and that's what they really wanted to do. I was thankful that I was able to be there with Joseph this last year when he got his deer in his final one. And I got to be there with him and to see the smile on his face, how proud he was that he made that shot.
When Jonathan and Joseph were first born, I didn't know really what to think about the whole kid thing. When I first thought about it, I didn't really want to have kids. My wife was kind of involved in it. I was on the fence. Then the boys were born. And Joseph was born with a lot of problems. And I didn't really want to get involved in that when he was first born, because I didn't know how it was going to work out. But man, what a miracle it came to be, because I got really close to Joseph. He changed my mind on a lot of things. The boys were something special together. You couldn't find one without the other. And wherever I went, Joseph, my shadow, was usually there. They were special. It made me want to have kids. I wanted to watch them grow like I did the boys. We always called them the boys because the boys were always around. They were inseparable. The moments we had with them, just unbelievable. So many things to talk about, so many blessings God gave, down to the last times I got to spend with him. We went to Kansas for the last time. We went duck hunting. Joseph really never been duck hunting. And man, we found some ducks, and that kid was in heaven. Remember leaving there, that kid wanted to become a duck hunter. And I had to explain to him that this isn't what it's supposed to be about. You usually go out and freeze for hours and find one duck. And Joseph, he really let him have it. And I'll never forget the moments God gave us for the last few years with him. Just something that you just don't get. I mean, we adults hunt their whole lives to get opportunities like that. And that young man had more opportunity than most adults I know did in their whole life combined. And it was just God's plan. He put everything together, and these moments came together, and in the short years he was alive, he did so many unbelievable things. The blessings that we shared changed my life forever. It made me want to become a father. It made me want to better myself. And it rings true today. I can go to calls, I can walk life. Today I was on a call looking for a violent felon, and I know that if something happened today, that tomorrow I'll be walking beside Joseph, and I'm okay with that. We have talks every day. I think about him. I walked this farm. I walked the spot that he passed away. Moments we shared fishing out here and doing everything, from dove hunting to fishing, to sharing time with family. And looking back, it wasn't about the hunting or fishing. It was about every single moment I was blessed with that young man. It shaped me into being a better father. I share those blessings in how we did things with my son. And some days it's just never going to be the same. The kid lived with no regrets, no envy, no animosity to people, and always had that huge smile. It kept everybody around him going. You just never would forget him. I can sit here today and see them goofy smile and the big teeth, and just a miracle of a grin. The last few days, the weekend that he passed away, we were up here working at the farm. And I'll never forget, Joseph was over there with a post. Man, he was trying to put a staple in. I look back and Joseph had that hammer and he was wailing on that post. I don't know if he's hitting a staple very much, but he was giving it all he had. And that's one thing I always admired about that kid. It didn't matter what he did, he gave everything to it. Whether it made him happy or sad, he gave 110% at the end of the day.
So I am the youngest of Anthony's brothers and I actually live out in Arizona. But last Thanksgiving was the last time I got to spend with the 3 J's. And my fondest memory of Joseph on that trip was running the Crossville Turkey Trot with him. You know, if you ran it before, you would know it's not a competition. They don't even keep time, actually. Joseph obviously didn't believe in that, as competitive as he was. So he wore a watch on his wrist, so he would know exactly what time he was and what he would run. Additionally, he had the primary goal of beating his brother Jonathan. So Joseph started off fast, which is so analogous to how he lived his life. You know, he would have fun and not worry about the consequences that would come later. Naturally, he did slow down after that first mile. Within the last mile, he actually slowed down even more and asked him why. He told me he had to poop. So he was effectively prairie dogging to avoid going on himself. So I was there. This was my job. I encouraged him to walk for a minute, and that sensation would go away. So with his brother less than 50 yards behind him and closing, Joseph fought through that and outkicked his brother to finish the race. Joseph persevered in that moment. As we celebrate Joseph's life today, we need to be thankful to the amazing gift God gave us in Joseph. We need to reflect on and remember his servant heart, his striking smile, his outgoing nature, and fearless mentality, his openness to praying for an entire room of people, and sharing his testimony with strangers on a mission trip. He was such a special person. I vividly remember Jonathan telling me Joseph was so outgoing, he didn't need to be. That is the beauty of community. Synergism can take place. Others make up for the areas in which we feel we are incapable. There is no replacing Joseph in our lives. That is a void that no one person can fill. Only Jesus can fill that void in our hearts. In our struggles, we need community around us to remind us of that, to remind us to be thankful for all that we have and had. So why is that story of Joseph so memorable to me? We are all running some type of race in our lives. Shit is going to happen. It's a product of living in a broken world. Restoration will only happen through community, through the Spirit intervening and causing family and friends to encourage and be with us along the way. Ultimately, we need to choose to persevere like Joseph. It is what he would have wanted. Thank you, guys.
My memories of Joseph, all good, adventurous, curious, Tom Cruise and action heroes all wrapped together. Always an adventure. We always had an adventure of where we were going to go, what we were going to do, and Joseph always had the plan. Eventually it would work. He was quite spirited. Everybody's talked about how spirited Joseph was, but there was another side to Joseph. Whenever we were out, whenever we were here on the farm, whenever we were doing whatever adventure we were on, or playing soccer, or coming back from hunting, all of a sudden I would feel an arm around my waist. And that touch would be Joseph. He would come up quickly behind me, reach around, and give me a little hug, and then disappear again. He was always around, even if I wasn't aware. The time I broke my ankle, I was in a wheelchair for quite some time. I was not an easy or good patient. I was here and I couldn't do anything at the farm. I didn't want to be a burden on anybody, and so I didn't really communicate to everybody that I was really having a tough time. Joseph knew. He would come in, he would make an effort not to tell me or to fuss over me. It was just the touch. He'd come up and it was the same thing, only on my shoulder. He wouldn't say anything, he'd just look at me and I'd look at him, and it was the touch. And we just knew. It wasn't an emotional moment or anything, it was just a feeling that we had. He sensed that all the time. We didn't talk and dwell on it, but he was there. Even when he was at a soccer game, or he was coming back from hunting and everybody's excited and talking and there's a crowd around, all of a sudden I would feel the touch.
Joseph also was just so sensitive around other people. I mean, as much as he was so adventurous and had that spirit that he would have, he sensed feelings in people when you didn't notice. If God had told me, I'll give you Joseph for 13 years, but I take him back. Yes, yes, absolutely. For the pain and the grief, I'd go through it 100 times to have the years that we had with Joseph. Joseph is adventurous, and all the stories about a Joseph is certainly true, but the sensitive side, there wasn't a time that Joseph wasn't here. Just like Jane just did. Joseph would bring me flowers. They'd be in a glass of water sitting in the kitchen, or I'd be out doing something and he'd bring them to me, and there were no words or anything said. He just knew how much, as you can tell, I have flowers and growing things everywhere. And he was always there, how busy we were before he left. He always brought me a flower, and my gorgeous Jane Elizabeth brought me one today, because he just had that other side too that most people didn't ever get to see. He was super sensitive and aware of people's feelings. The day he died, he brought me a handful of daffodils. He brought them in and put them in a glass of water for me. Those daffodils are sitting on my nightstand. They'll sit there to the day I die. And I always remember Joseph.
When you were born, Jonathan and Joseph, in Nashville, the biggest concern I had was that I had twin grandsons. But there's an awful high chance that there would only be one to go home. And so some people take exception to saying, that all through this that I've been blessed. Well, there's the first blessing, that Joseph came home with us, okay? Now, it wasn't over yet then, because many hours of feeding him hard, but we were so blessed that Joseph came home and became part of the immediate family, okay? One that wasn't here at the farm, you remember often I talking about Mrs. Beaver, which is Clay Holmes is named after her son. Well, she's 94 or 5. Well, Joseph went with us to visit her one day. You could talk to anybody and make them feel good. We went over there one time to Miss Beaver, and she could not believe how polite Joseph was. He'd get up and go over and talk to her where she could hear him good. She'd go get him things. Joseph was a caring person, all in on that too, wide open to make everybody feel good, okay? Myself, Granta, just you too. He'd do things, he liked to make you happy. Right here we talk about working cows over the Holsteins, but right here, oh, he was all in here at the chute. There's some video, one that Granta just found this week. He'd be up front, he'd be in the back. He'd be up front, he'd be in the back. If he would just hold still and hold one position, and you could do the other. But he wanted to go do yours and go do his too, you know? So, but you couldn't change that. He wanted to do it all. So it was just exciting to have him working cows, you know. What would you think was the best thing he liked about the farm?
Working cows.
Working cows?
Definitely.
Well, we didn't get to do that as much as, you know, patching the fence, doing other stuff, cleaning the barns was always there, but the cow work was special, you know? And plus, many times your dad was here with us to work the cows, which waited again 3 generations again at the farm doing something together. It just didn't get no better, you know? You were playing checkers in Cracker Barrel one time with a young man that didn't know how to play too well, right? You were not trying to win. You were trying to let him win.
Yeah.
Joseph's over there pacing. Finally, he couldn't stand it. He walks in between the two, takes the checker, goes, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. There, game is over. But you weren't going to. You're going to let the young boy win some. Not Joseph. All in. Done. Now let's go eat. He was a sight now.
The other thing that Joseph loved was helping others. We served at the Bread of Life every month from the office, and he loved to be there with them. He loved to be able to make meals and to be able to serve those that didn't have as much as us. We were on trips for business trips or family trips, and he would see someone homeless on the road, and always, when he was a little bit, he asked, why are they sleeping there? Why are they there? Why are they not at their house? And to be able to explain to them that some people don't have houses. He wanted to give them money for food. He wanted to take them things. The street performers that were playing music, he always wanted money to go give them money on the streets to be able to put in their guitar case or their hat or the bucket that was sitting there. He wanted to help others. And that was his heart.
Before, when the boys were like 10, 11, 12, their birthday would come along, and we had some missionaries living with us from time to time, and Joseph and Jonathan was, instead of gifts, would get money for their birthday and give it to a missionary instead of getting gifts. Or they would, Joseph just had a heart to give and to serve people. He had a servant's heart that was very unique to him, always empathetic to other people. For a little boy who was so competitive and so driven and such a twin boy and all into sports and the outdoors, his uniqueness was in his servant's heart and his empathy and to others. To hear and listen and meet their needs was a gift. Joseph did love to serve in the ministry. He was a proud believer in Jesus Christ. He couldn't wait to get saved, and he would talk about questions. And then one day we pulled into the vet clinic, and I had the twins and Jane Elizabeth in the back of the minivan, and Joseph came up from his seat in between the seats, and we were parked at the vet clinic. And he was the first one of our children to be bold enough in his faith to give his life to Jesus. And he came to the seats and he sat in my lap and he said, "Mom, I'm ready. He's like, I want to give my life to Jesus. And we prayed the prayer of salvation and trusted Jesus with his life in the middle of the vet clinic parking lot on an afternoon right after school. And that's how Joseph was. When he made his decision to commit his life to Christ, he was all in. We went inside, told Anthony, who's bold in his faith. We went on missions to Ecuador, and he would tell people about his healing and show them the scars from his surgery and say, this is where Jesus healed me. He was not afraid to talk to people in Ecuador. We were there on a family mission trip, and the boys would use Legos and soccer balls to just witness to the other children. Joseph decided to get baptized. He went to the pastor, Scott, at our church and said, I'm ready to be baptized. And Scott said, well, it's Christmas. The Christmas tree's up. The baptism area is not open. Come back to me later. And Joseph was little. And the Sunday that we went into the congregation and the Christmas tree production was down, he found Scott, unbeknownst to us, and told him, this Christmas tree is down. I'm ready to be baptized. And Scott White tells that story about Joseph. And that was just his spirit. He was all in for his family. He loved his friends. He loved the less than. He loved Jesus. And Joseph he was just a passionate kid and competitive, but it came through in so many tender ways that was just so unique that he could be so competitive and intense as an athlete and an outdoorsman and a sportsman, and then turn around and be so gentle and caring with other people. And he was gifted. He was definitely gifted.
My name is Terry May, and I am one of the pastors at Central Baptist Church. And I'm sure you've heard some amazing stories about Joseph, some from friends and family and coaches, how they got to experience Joseph in the sports world, in the friendship and family, and all those amazing things. I got to experience Joseph's life in a unique way, and in the area of his faith, and seeing him grow in the Lord. Joseph was very active here at Central, and seeing him grow in the Lord and grow in his faith through VBS, through Sunday school, through all the different activities and things that go on around here. But one of the things that I'm most grateful for is that I got to spend a week with the Warlick family and my family and the Lau family in Ecuador on a mission trip. And it was this very special time to see the faith in our children and these families grow, and especially in Joseph's life, to see his faith grow. Joseph, when it came to faith, has an all-in faith. Right now, he has an all-in faith. And he had an all-in faith while he was in Ecuador as well. I remember a story or a moment that we shared together where we were driving up to a field there in Ecuador. It's actually a gravel field, and kids were out there playing. Kids were out there playing soccer. I don't know, it was 1,000 degrees out there, but the kids are out there playing soccer. And the kids that we have with us, Joseph being one of them, were excited. They're ready to jump out of the van and go play. And I'm thinking, man, they're going to have a great day playing soccer. Joseph's going to be all in when it comes to the sport. And he was. And Jane Elizabeth and Jonathan as well, they were all in and everything. But it wasn't too long that the moment came when it was time to be all in for sharing our faith and sharing about what Christ had done in our lives. And Joseph was ready, chomping at the bit, ready to share with everybody that was there. We gathered everybody together. We quietened everybody down, families, kids there, boys and girls that they had been playing soccer with. And the Warlick family, along with Joseph, got up and shared their faith. And I remember standing over there underneath a tree in some shade, just watching as Joseph was all in when it came to his faith, his love for the Lord. And I got to see that, I got to witness that. And I know that Joseph would want me to ask you this. When it comes to Jesus, are you all in? You know, that's a good question. Do you know Jesus as Lord and Savior? You know, you can today. You too can have an all-in faith. Just as Joseph has right now, you can place your faith and trust in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I don't know where this video is going to find you. I don't know where you're at, but I know that Joseph would want you to know for sure that Jesus is your Lord and Savior. And I know that you can reach out to the Warlick family. You can find me. I'm easily found. And we can talk about that. And we can talk about how you can have an all-in faith that is in Jesus Christ alone for salvation.
Joseph, tell us your name and get started.
Hello.
Good.
Hello, my name is Joseph, and when I was 7 years old, I believed in Jesus. I believed in Jesus because I had seen many things God done in my life. Like when I was a baby, I was sick and my throat was not attached. I could have died, but God saved me. And I also believe in Jesus because my brother trusted in Jesus and he was a happier person. Since I'm a Christian, if I sin, Jesus will forgive me no matter what. Jesus is a great God. Jesus will give me everything I have and I am grateful for it.
Yay! Good job! Well, when I think of Joseph Warlick, I tend to think not so much in specific memories, but I tend to think of him as just an overall human being and the presence that he brought to a room. Whenever I was around Joseph, he was just attracting in his personality, in his smile, the way that he looked, the way that he treated other people. He was always very inclusive. He loved hanging out with people, and he loved having his group of friends around. And so whenever we were having student worship or whenever we were together at the church, I always saw him interacting with other people and making them feel loved and welcome in the way that he composed himself. Even though I was Joseph's student pastor here at Central, really the memory that always sticks out in my mind about Joseph is the time that we got to spend together at Cedar Lake Camp. Every night at Cedar Lake, every cabin does a cabin devotion time. And it's basically meant for those campers to be able to share what the Lord is doing in their lives. It's an opportunity to just kind of talk and apply what the campfires and the Bible studies and the quiet times during the day had all been about. It's just a time of just sharing. And I remember one time in particular, one night during this week that we were talking through the gospel message, and one camper asked the question while I was kind of walking around and everybody was in their bunk. One camper said, "But how do we know that this is true? Like, how do we know that Jesus really did die on the cross so that we could go to heaven and have an eternal relationship with our Father in heaven?" And I mean, it was basically that kind of a question. And before I could get a word out, Joseph had somehow made it off of his bunk bed, his top bunk bed, and he got down onto the floor and he started sharing his story about how the Lord kept him alive in birth, and how the Lord had been working in his life. And that to this day, I think I will remember that night for the rest of my life, just because he was so fast to take that opportunity and share with that camper who had raised a question of doubt, a question of curiosity. Joseph took that opportunity and talked to the whole cabin about how he knew Jesus was his Lord and his Savior, and how God had saved him and had walked with him. And you know, I think about this now, and I just praise God for that truth. I praise God for the gospel, because right now Joseph is with Jesus. Joseph is right there next to him, and right now he is more alive than we are right now. He's more alive than he's ever been.
He's pretty respectful, and he always, "Hi, Mr. Gonzalo." He always smile with me, and give me a hug. So he's, that's the best way to remember him. He always happy to do it, whatever we send it to do it. He always asked to come in, to the parents, and I mean, sometimes he can come, but he always has to come and help. He always want to help. Yeah, he made me feel special. I mean, like, he always pray for me and ask to the parents, we have to pray for Gonzalo. And I mean, after that, you guys tell me, Joseph asked pray for you, and you send me a text, and so that's a good thing. Well, he smile always, no mosquito smile, so that's make different.
And I remember this one time that their Jonathan team play against Joseph and Jonathan's team, and I saw Joseph playing very hard, playing with all he had, and at the end of the game they lost. Joseph's team lost, and Joseph get out of the field crying, and I couldn't really understand why. And I couldn't understand it why. But after we start meeting you more and more, I understood why. Joseph, every single time, everything that he did, he embraced it, he played it, and he really enjoyed it. He was all in with everything that he did, and he used to cry because for the rest of us it was just a simple soccer game or probably a shooting competition, but for him it was all. And if he lost, he was crying because he gave it all into the games or the shooting or whatever he was doing. And like I said, for the rest of us, it was just simple a game, but for him, it was like the World Cup every single time. And when he started having more relationship with my boys, that's the same way that he did with my family, with my boys. He just embraced them like brothers, and he didn't see, the color. He didn't see the broken English that sometimes we had. He always knew what we were trying to say, and he loved us all with all what he got. And when I think about him and my boys, I know that they had more than just a friendship. I know that Joseph loved them with everything that he had. Like I said, Joseph was all in everything that he did. Sometimes I went to your house to pick up my boys, and sometimes it was, a not very good day, but as soon as I arrived at your house, he was one of the first ones coming to greet me and give me a hug and give me that big smile, telling me, "Hi, Miss Sylvia, how are you?" And that would change my mood right away because he was very loving, very caring, and I knew that he used to love unconditionally.
I mean, first of all, his smile. I mean, that's one thing that was pretty unique about him, and how mature sometimes he would act, like more than me, which is I would notice. So I was like, that was pretty surprising. I'm going to honor Joseph by talking about God more because that's one thing he did a lot. So that's one thing I'm trying to work on. So yeah. My relationship with Jonathan and Joseph was more like a relationship of brothers. Yeah, so we play around a lot, so just how competitive we were both trying to be at Nerf War or something. So yeah, sometimes we'd hurt each other and just shake it off. That way we don't get in trouble or something. So yeah. Well, he was so competitive that if he were to lose, he sometimes cry over it, and it meant so much to him. So
Well, how he was like, he didn't care, how he was, just like different really. That he would always be himself, and yeah, when I think of Joseph, that's what I think of. Well, that like he could see really when I was sad, angry, or something like that. He would always like notice it. He would try to come and make me feel better. Joseph taught me to be myself and not to care what other people think about me.
my favorite memory, like whenever I'm sad or something, and I think about him, I just think of him, like whatever he would say if he would see me like that, like some funny comment or something. So like if I were in a sad mood, he's like, "Man up, you're older than me," something like that. So
He would just tell me that it's okay, really. Doesn't really matter.
noticing about the other people's feelings. So yeah, just be yourself, keep doing.
Joseph was very confident in who he was. He did not care about other people's opinions. He would wear his tight shirts because they felt good. He would pull his socks up to his knees because it felt good. He would wear this great big toboggan around because he loved it. And it's his sensory processing that those things felt good to him. The only person that he cared their opinion about was Jonathan. And he would get dressed and look at Jonathan and say, "Jonathan, does this look okay?" And as long as Jonathan said it looked okay, it didn't matter what anybody else thought. He was confident to be able to walk out with whatever he's wearing. He struggled through concentration and as part of his sensory processing. And we had a conversation one night up in his room. I asked him, I said, "What is it like being at school and trying to concentrate?" And he said, "Daddy, it's like having a big jar of marbles and there's one red marble, and that's what I have to concentrate on." And we started him on some medication to help him with concentration. And I asked him, I said, "Does the medication help?" And he says, "It does. It makes that marble a little bit bigger." But when he was at the farm, when he was on the playing fields, he didn't have the marbles there anymore. And that's why he loved it so much.
One of my students was Joseph Warlick. In fact, I taught all three of the Warlick children, Joseph's twin, Jonathan, and their younger sister, Jane. I met him the first day of class as he walked in. This was about 15 minutes before class started. And he immediately came up to me and introduced himself and shook my hand. That was an unusual beginning. I didn't expect something like that. Of course, Jonathan was with him and he did the same. Then Jonathan and Joseph immediately picked up some books that were in the classroom and started reading. This was about 15 or 20 minutes before class was actually going to start. From that beginning, I began to see Joseph as a very unusual young man. He had almost a miracle birth, that's what I've been told. And he started out life at a little bit of a disadvantage, but that didn't stop Joseph from fighting his whole life. He was a warrior. He would try anything, and he was usually pretty good at what he tried to do. I remember one incident that we were doing a debate, and each of the students was impersonating an abolitionist of the 19th century. Joseph selected to do Harriet Tubman. Now, of course, Harriet is a woman, but Joseph didn't mind because he had a feeling for her. He had a feeling for her ideas and her bravery, and he wanted to portray her. Now, he got ribbed by the other students in the class. That didn't faze Joseph at all. At another time, he was, and this takes me back just to August of last year, when Joseph started in the second class that I taught. the first thing he wanted to know was, what books are we going to read this year? Joseph probably, I would guess that he has read and had read up to that time hundreds of books. And I'm sure most of them were at his age level, but he was eager to challenge himself. And so he read a number of books, again, that were adult literature, but he loved them, or he didn't love them, and he'd tell me if he did or didn't, but he'd always make sense of them. Joseph, I came to love this young man because he was a fighter, because he was a competitor. He could get into mischief, and he could be distracted at times. I think that Joseph has taught me a lot of valuable lessons. He crammed so much living into just a little over 12 years. My heart grieves for Joseph, and I know I will always grieve his passing. He was an extraordinary, extraordinary young man, and I loved him dearly.
I believe the Lord knew that the gift He gave us was going to graduate in 13 years, and he was going to be in heaven with the Lord. And so He gave Joseph so many qualities that you don't see and experiences you don't have. The thing that I miss about Joseph the most is just his giving heart. I miss him playing sports. I miss the smiles on the field. I miss him making my coffee in the mornings. Joseph would make my coffee for me. I would be carrying the coffee, trying to get the kids in the minivan for school. Joseph would run around the front of the car and open my car door. He just spontaneously would say things like, "Mom, your pajamas are pretty. Mom, I like your lipstick." And that was just so unique to him, that he had that ability to affirm people, and he had the ability to vocalize his emotions and feeling at such a young age. And I think the Lord knew that we needed that. And I think I'm going to miss his servant's heart and his affirmation of others the most. He just had this biggest smile and the willingness to please others.
On Joseph's dating list, we had like a list of 5 things who must be a must, that has to happen in order for you to date them. His number 1 was make sure I approve of it. You have to be a Christian, you have to be smart, you have to have a good family. Joseph would walk in my room at night and I'm trying to go to bed. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I would not be able to sleep by then because Joseph would have his radio on in his room playing country music. But I'd be laying down in my room and he'd walk in there, and either if I was asleep, he'd come wake me up and go, "Hey, I'm not tired." I'd go, "Well, I am. Go back to your room." He'd go, "No, but I'm not. Can you stay up with me?" I said, "No." I go back to your room. I don't want to sleep. I'm trying to go to sleep. And Joseph would be like, "Can we just play 1 round of cards?" I'd be like, "No, it's time to go to bed." He's like, "Fine, I'll go to bed." And then he'll come back 30 seconds later. "Please, can we just play 1 round of cards? I'll go away soon." I said, "Fine, 1 round." Then when we're done that round, she's like, "All right, let's do it again." I was like, "No, I'm trying to go to sleep." And he'd be like, "No." And And somehow at the end of the night, it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning and we'd still be up playing cards. Joseph would always be my biggest fan. He'd be like my biggest supporter. He'd be like, yeah, I'll come play on my soccer team. I want you to play with all these older boys, show them how it's done. Or during class, he'd be like, good job, you got all A's this year. Congratulations. Or he'd be like, can I help you for a test on this test so you can make all A's? When I went to go shoot, it's okay. When I first started, I only shot like a 25. If I missed a goal that I probably should have shot, he would have been like, well, I miss those all the time, you'll be fine. When I think of Joseph, I think about his competitive attitude. It wasn't a bad thing until sometimes it got a little too far, but we'd go outside and start with, why don't we play like dodgeball? And I'd be like, no, that's too aggressive. He's like, fine, we'll play basketball. I'm like, okay, we can play basketball. And maybe play basketball outside, and then, and I never played basketball, and he was always playing basketball. I'd get a little mad, and he'd walk away, but then he would come back 5 minutes later and say, I'm sorry, I got mad. Can we play again? Another thing that reminds me of Joseph is like the attitude, always wanting to help. Mom would be downstairs unloading the dishwasher. She's like, Mom, go to bed, lay down. I got this. And so she would go lay down, and me and John would be upstairs sleeping because it's like 6 o'clock in the morning before he went to school. Or he would be like, can I pack your lunch today? Here, let me take your backpack outside. Here, let me open the door for you. Here, let me clean your room for you so you don't have to. If somebody was being mean to me, he would always come up and like, first say stop it. And then if not, it'd kind of get physical, but he would always stand up for me.
So one of my favorite things with Joseph is whenever we'd ride our bikes down to the obed, and then Joseph would carry his backpack full of knives and just survival stuff that he called survival stuff, and we would walk all the way up to the water purification place. We'd go and we'd walk through there, and then we'd go up on the land. So Joseph and we'd stay up all night just hanging out, playing with the ball. I mean, any way Dad or Mom could separate us, we'd always be back right in here playing around. And we'd either throw the ball, just wrestle on the bed, talk, act like we were hunting something outside the window, anything in our room, like deer head, pictures, anything we'd just shoot at and think they were a dove or ducks or something like that. So Joseph's my best friend because whenever we'd argue or anything like that, we'd get in a fight over sports, we'd like walk away and get mad at each other, and then 15 minutes later we'd be back playing the exact same sport right from where we left off. Or at night, if Mom and Dad separated us, we'd come right back together and we'd know exactly when to go meet each other, and we'd stay up for each other all night waiting for each other to come. Or if like we did something that we weren't supposed to, he'd always cover for me, or I'd cover for him. And everything we did together, we were right there next to each other doing. So like me and Joseph was always competitive, and we were always trying to keep up with one another. Like Joseph knew how to throw knives, and I would always try to do that. Or I would have better foot skills and try to do that, beat me in that. Or fitness, or lifting weights, or push-ups, or planks, or anything to do with competitiveness. We always tried to be better. So one of my favorite reasons for being a twin is we'd always do everything together. There's no reason Mom and Dad could find that we wouldn't be able to be together, or do any sports differently, or school, or anything else. we'd always be together, and like he always had my back no matter what happened or what I did. One way me and Joseph were different was that he was always willing to talk to anybody or walk up to anybody and just share his faith. And whenever he'd meet someone new, he'd say his name and then he'd say, "Do you know Jesus? And can I tell you about him?" The best disciple in the world. And he always wanted to share his like scars and how he was born and the miracles that happened whenever he was born and esophagus are getting put back together and how Jesus healed him.
March 7th, 2020 is the day the Lord called Joseph home to his eternal home. And it was a beautiful day. It was a normal Saturday for us. We were busy with our children. Anthony had gone to work. Jonathan and Joseph and his best friends, two of their best friends who were brothers, Matthew and Jonathan, they were going to go to the farm and they wanted to help my dad build fence. Joseph was a servant. He loved being around his friends. It was his perfect day. His brother, his best friends, and they were going to build fence and help Grandpa on the farm. Joseph sat up front with me on the way there. It's about 45 minutes. He held my hand in true Joseph fashion, thinking of others, loving us well, held my hand all the way there, bounced out of my car, said, "Goodbye, Mommy, I love you," and off they went with Papa to build fence and spend the day at the farm with their best friends and just being a help to my dad and being in the outdoors.
And I went down to pick them up about 3 o'clock in the afternoon from their day. And shortly after I got to the farm, they were on their way back in a UTV, and the UTV wrecked, and that killed Joseph. And that was the last time we got to see him on a freak accident that can happen.
He was with his brother and his two best friends, and he was in his happiest place, and he opened his eyes and met Jesus. And we have no doubt about that. We grieve and long to see the smile, to reunite him with Jonathan and Jane and his friends. Our family will be marked by the tragedy of March 7th. And we just look for hope in the future, and that's through Jesus.
The most what I'm gonna miss with him is when I would come home every night from work, he would run up to me, give me a great big hug, and say, "I love you, Daddy. How was your day at work today?" And he meant it every single time. I'm gonna miss him growing up to see who he's gonna be, being on the field, being in the woods. Even over the last several months, trying to figure out a new normal with Jonathan in those same situations, or Jane in those same situations. It's not the same. And Joseph was the spunky one that brought life to everything that we did. And it's so much different now, and I miss the moments, the conversations that he and I would have, and just the time to be with him and be his dad.